South Africa, a land of breathtaking beauty, rolling hills, vast savannas, a place where nature's splendor meets the resilience of its people. A nation grappling with its past, striving for a brighter future. From the echoes of apartheid to the promise of a new dawn, South Africa's journey has been one of hope and struggle. But beneath the surface, a storm brewed. A storm that would reveal the cracks in the foundation of this young democracy. A scandal that would shake the nation to its core. The headlines screamed betrayal and the people felt the sting of deception. The VBS Mutual Bank saga, a tale of greed, corruption and betrayal. A story where those entrusted with the people's money chose personal gain over public good. The news hit like a thunderbolt. VBS Mutual Bank, a supposed champion of the poor, declared insolvent. The shockwaves were felt far and wide. Billions of rands vanished, gone, disappeared into the pockets of the unscrupulous. The life savings of ordinary South Africans wiped out. Families left in financial ruin, their futures uncertain. Pensioners left destitute, dreams turned to dust. The impact was devastating, leaving a trail of broken lives and shattered hopes. This wasn't just about money, it was about trust. Trust that had been built over years, now eroded in an instant. Trust in institutions, trust in leaders. The very fabric of society was at stake. The VBS scandal cut deep, exposing a web of corruption that stretched to the highest levels of power. It was a betrayal of the public's faith. It became a symbol of the rot that threatened South Africa's hard-won democracy, a democracy that had been fought for with blood, sweat and tears. The nation demanded answers. Who was responsible? How could this happen? The call for justice grew louder. The search for truth began, and it led to some uncomfortable places, to political parties, to prominent individuals. The investigation peeled back layers of deceit. The scandal threatened to unravel the carefully woven fabric of South African society. It was a test of resilience, a challenge to rebuild trust and integrity. At the heart of the scandal stood the Economic Freedom Fighters, or EFF. A party known for its fiery rhetoric, its calls for radical economic transformation, its unwavering stance on land expropriation without compensation. The EFF has always positioned itself as a revolutionary force, challenging the status quo and promising to uplift the marginalized. The EFF positioned itself as the champion of the dispossessed, the voice of the voiceless. It garnered significant support from those who felt left behind by the economic system, promising to be their advocate and protector. But the VBS scandal revealed a stark hypocrisy. The very leaders who spoke so passionately about justice and equity were now embroiled in a controversy that betrayed their own principles. While the EFF demanded land restitution for historical injustices, its own leaders were implicated in the looting of a bank that served the very communities they claimed to represent. This bank, VBS Mutual, was a lifeline for many, especially in rural areas where access to financial services is limited. The irony was not lost on the South African public. The betrayal felt by the community was palpable, as they grappled with the reality that their supposed champions might have been exploiting them all along. How could a party that championed the poor turn a blind eye to the plundering of their savings? The trust that had been built over years was now in jeopardy, and the EFF's credibility was under severe scrutiny. The EFF's involvement in the VBS saga raised uncomfortable questions about its true motives. Was the party genuinely committed to the cause of economic justice? Or was it merely using the rhetoric of revolution to mask its own corrupt practices? Was it truly committed to economic justice? The scandal forced many to reconsider their support and question the integrity of the party's leadership. Or were its pronouncements merely a smokescreen for self-enrichment? The disillusionment among its supporters was growing as they sought answers and accountability. The scandal cast a long shadow over the party's credibility, leaving many to wonder if its commitment to social justice was merely a facade. The once unshakable faith in the EFF's mission was now riddled with doubt and suspicion.
Denials. The EFF leadership vehemently denied any wrongdoing, insisting that the allegations were part of a broader political conspiracy to discredit them. Accusations of political witch hunts, attempts to deflect blame. The narrative from the EFF was one of victimhood, portraying themselves as targets of an orchestrated campaign to undermine their revolutionary agenda.
But the evidence mounted. Investigative journalists and financial experts continued to uncover a trail of corruption and mismanagement that pointed directly to the party's upper echelons. The paper trail led back to the EFF's doorstep. The documents and testimonies painted a damning picture of complicity and greed. The party's pronouncements on economic justice rang hollow in the face of the VBS scandal. The lofty ideals and promises of transformation seemed increasingly like empty rhetoric designed to win votes rather than effect real change. Amidst the political maneuvering and financial jargon, it's easy to lose sight of the human cost of the VBS scandal. But behind the headlines were real people, ordinary South Africans whose lives were shattered by the bank's collapse. People like Aubrey Mulaudzi.
I was a school teacher in Limpopo, a dedicated educator who dreamed of a better future for my family. I had diligently saved every rand I could, depositing my hard-earned money into a VBS account. I believed I was doing the right thing, supporting a bank that promised to empower my community.
Then the unthinkable happened. VBS collapsed. Aubrey's savings vanished overnight. Years of hard work gone, his dream of a better life for his family shattered. He was forced to sell his home, his car, everything he had worked for. Aubrey's story is not unique. Thousands of South Africans lost their savings when VBS collapsed. Pensioners were left destitute, families were torn apart. The scandal had a devastating impact on vulnerable communities, wiping out their financial security and leaving them feeling betrayed and hopeless. Section 4. The Crumbling Pillars, VBS Bank's Collapse and its Devastating Impact. VBS Mutual Bank was no ordinary financial institution. It held a special place in the hearts of many South Africans. It was seen as a beacon of hope, a symbol of black economic empowerment. It served communities often overlooked by larger banks. People trusted VBS. They believed in its mission, but beneath the veneer of respectability, something sinister was brewing. Corruption, fraud, embezzlement on a grand scale. The bank's executives were living lavish lifestyles. Private jets, luxury cars, mansions, all funded by the savings of ordinary South Africans. The house of cards began to crumble when the South African Reserve Bank placed VBS under curatorship. An investigation revealed the shocking truth. The bank was insolvent. Billions of rands had been looted. The scale of the fraud was staggering. The collapse of VBS sent shockwaves through the South African economy. It had a devastating impact on vulnerable communities. Small businesses were forced to close. Jobs were lost. The ripple effects were felt far and wide. Section 5. Matodzi's testimony, unraveling the EFF's alleged involvement. The search for answers led to Chifiwa Matodzi, the former chairperson of VBS Bank. His involvement in the scandal was a turning point in the investigation. Matodzi, once a respected businessman, had built a reputation for himself in the financial sector. His fall from grace was as dramatic as it was unexpected. He was now a key figure in the scandal. He turned state witness, promising to reveal the truth behind the bank's collapse. A move that shocked many. His testimony was anticipated to be a game-changer, shedding light on the intricate web of corruption that had ensnared VBS Bank.
In explosive testimony before a judicial commission, I implicated several high-profile individuals in the VBS looting spree. The courtroom was abuzz with tension as I recounted the events. I named names, pointing fingers at those who had once been untouchable. Among them were senior members of the EFF, a revelation that sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Among them were senior members of the EFF. The allegations were serious and painted a picture of deep-rooted corruption within the party. I alleged that EFF leaders had received millions of rands in bribes and kickbacks in exchange for protecting the bank from scrutiny. The money flowed freely, and the corruption was rampant.
He detailed how EFF officials had pressured municipalities to deposit public funds into VBS, even though it was against regulations. This was a blatant abuse of power, even though it was against regulations. The officials ignored the rules, driven by greed and the promise of financial gain. He claimed that the EFF had benefited directly from the bank's illegal activities. The party's involvement was deeper than anyone had imagined. Matodzi's testimony sent shockwaves through the South African political landscape. The revelations were damning and left many in disbelief. It provided a glimpse into the murky world of corruption and patronage that had infected the country's institutions. The extent of the rot was staggering.
The EFF vehemently denied Matodzi's allegations, dismissing them as lies fabricated by a desperate man trying to save himself. They stood firm in their defense, dismissing them as lies fabricated by a desperate man trying to save himself. The party's leaders were vocal and adamant in their rebuttals.
But the damage was done. The allegations had already taken root in the public's mind. The party's reputation was tarnished. The once unassailable image of the EFF was now under scrutiny. Its claims of fighting for the poor rang hollow in the face of such serious accusations. The people they claimed to represent felt betrayed and disillusioned.